In this video, I'm going to try and articulate some very esoteric thoughts. I'm going to try and create context. To some extent, I interpret experiences, my perceptions. Things hit me, come at me, I interpret them. I'm standing in front of one of my last pieces, my last paintings. They are three-dimensional. They're quite very dimensional, actually. They come out almost 2 feet or so from the wall. And it's quite relevant and appropriate to this conversation. I'm carrying on in my own mind. I'm going to try and articulate, externalize my thoughts. And first of all, I want to thank Deborah Mahmoudieh for posting a video on the idea that Bitcoin, as I call it, shitcoin, is mapping our DNA. This is going to be a very important aspect of this interpretation, this context that I like to create. As a painter, like most of my extended family of artists and painters, their work is valuable primarily to me as having articulated their time and in that sense captured an aspect of eternity. Yes, this probably could go within the framework of my desire to articulate something, to express notions that I feel personally in regard to eternity. And yes, my extended family, people that I have, that I feel attracted to, like Velasquez, or one of my favorite has always been Goya. People that have expressed something of their time that captured an essence that is timeless in a sense. So the idea of the zeitgeist, the spirit of the time, is crucial to the artist in the sense of being able to be part of something that is eternal. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I relate to in the sense of eternity. This is not specifically about eternity, but it actually has its relevance. So I'll thank you, Deborah, for doing that video, and I'm going to read a little. One of her links was connected to Genecoin, a coin that, or they call it Genecoin, I think, a coin that actually creates what is Genecoin. You have to send in a spit sample and stuff like that to get your DNA sample analyzed and mapped and all of that kind of stuff. I'm not going to go in. I'm going to put a link to Deborah's video and you can check that out for yourself, but I'm going to specifically focus on one idea that has come out of this that is, for me, quite disturbing, and it ties into quite a number of other things. And like I say, in front of one of my last paintings, which is an amorphous. I'm not an abstract painter per se. I'm not, and I don't think there's anything. The idea, the concept of abstraction has no relevance to me because an object is an object, and if you call it something in the sense of, does it relate a story? Does it relate? Abstraction generally is considered to be non-objective. In other words, not to represent something that is out there. But this is a representation of itself. It is out there. It's not abstract. It's real. It's real. It's not a shitcoin. It's real. It's like a, it's real. It's not abstract. But people consider it to be abstract because you can't recognize things. Now, this is relevant in this thought process I'm developing, and it has to do with consciousness. And what is actually now beginning to formulate and what I'm beginning to understand somewhat, and our struggle to identify ourselves within a larger scheme of things, what we do as what artists, writers, what they attempt to do is create some sort of connection between the inexplicable in ourselves, that we have aspects to ourselves which are so mysterious and complex that it has disturbed people quite often. It's very disturbing not to be in control of things. Like the owners like to be in control of things, and they live their lives. Their worldview is one. If I can't control it, like Mussolini's famous saying was that if I can't screw it, eat it, I'll shit on it, or something like that. He was a very brutal, he was a barbarian, a degenerate who related to this experience as something to control and manipulate rather than to be a part of. And I want to refer to the idea that consciousness comes up among a lot of people, even spiritual people who are seeing themselves as elevated souls in relation to some kind of a worldview that is with religious notions, whether it's Hindu or Muslim or Buddhist. Specifically, I think Buddhists have a real feeling, a romance with the idea of consciousness. And what I'm understanding about shitcoin and what is going on, or Bitcoin, all right, I'll just say Bitcoin, but you have understood my sentiment about this, and the people that are promoting it unwittingly are creating a platform for something extremely, extremely nefarious. And this is what I'm going to just sort of interpret, create a context for, because it also involves eternity, something that is lasting beyond our understanding. We have no concept of this idea of an ongoing continuity, which is eternity. And consciousness is, in a sense, the plasma onto which matter impregnates itself, or in some interaction that matter and consciousness becomes interchangeable in the sense that it allows us to visualize, from an abstract notion, true sense of the word, become real on some level. So consciousness, being everything, is that kind of neutral plasma that attracts all matter to it. And within this experience of consciousness, we also have levels of complexity that obviously are not understood. The mystery is outside or includes consciousness, but consciousness as you and I experience it is done through our bodies, through our physical being, which has within it what is known as our DNA. The structure of this mystery is represented through our DNA into consciousness. Matter impregnated on consciousness is interpreted within the DNA, which is why it's extremely it's a phenomenal code. It's a phenomenal aspect of this mystery, in the sense that it articulates, it individualizes, it creates separation from the point of view that it allows diversity, something that is magnificent within the experience that we have as human beings. If you look at the species represented all around, all within this impregnation of matter onto consciousness, it's magnificent. So the idea, now I'm going to read a little snippet what Deborah had posted on Genecoin, and this is what the goal is. Now this becomes very disturbing, and here's what these people are saying. Here's a quote: "We're helping humans transition into the era of all data, everything, and network fitness. Plants evolved such that their seeds would stick to bird wings. As birds fly, they carry plant genetic material to uncharted foreign land. Similarly, our crawlers will spread your genetic material to foreign blockchains all across the globe. Genecoin is inventing new birds. Genecoin is inventing new birds for the decentralized digital era. All right, I'm going to dissect this a little bit. Number one, the idea that our reality evolves in the sense that we're being told is a bunch of hooey, is crazy, is nuts, is again the white coats trying to put their stamp on this mystery. Like I said in my last video, Terence McKenna saying, give me one free miracle and I'll explain the rest. This is the nature of science. So to come up with a theory that's called evolution, and if you take, for example, they mucky fuck around with everything in their labs, and they're very successful in manipulating everything, but they haven't got a clue how it actually works, because if they did, and their evolution theory was correct, then they could take the fruit flies, which have very short lives, ours, and they can manipulate it to evolve a new creature out of a fruit fly. But they can't do it because evolution is a theory that's ridiculous. Darwin is a nutcase. He's a retard that was put in, a Freemasonic retard that was put in order to direct our awareness towards a certain way of thinking that would help the owners run the joint. That's all it is. Because there is a great anxiety and nervousness about not having control. You got to be in control. I mean, I feel that in my own life. It's like my furnace was screwing up. It's minus 20 and my furnace is screwing up. It's out of control. The water pipes will burst. I spent, 2 in the morning fixing a pipe in my furnace. Anyway, out of controlness, yes, creates anxiety. So on the level of taking this idea now, the idea that Bitcoin is a platform whereby something is being mapped. This is without a doubt a fact. And the further it goes down this chain into the blockchain, the greater and more complex these mappings are becoming. And what this little quote that I gave you, the goal is to literally, and this is my interpretation, what they're attempting to do, and the biggest obstacle to the owners has been, what I have been going on about, is conscience. That part in us that has no relative sequence, in the sense that consciousness attracts matter, which can be manipulated, obviously, but there's a part to us, the religions like to call it spirit. I still prefer the idea of conscience, something that distinguishes us to each other. Never mind other creatures, because we have no experience of other creatures. Even Tiresias, who had the experience of being both male and female, was asked, and who had more pleasure in the sexual act, and he said it was the woman, and I think it was the goddess, whoever that was, Zeus's queen, struck him blind. So we have no way of really understanding what it means to be another creature other than ourselves. So here's the point. What is happening with Bitcoin is an attempt to extract the one obstacle that has eluded the owners, and that is to be able to manipulate conscience. Conscience either exists or it doesn't. It's like evolution. If you have eyes, they either work or they don't. You don't have like a funny looking couple of knobs on your head and over 1 million years they turn into eyes. They either work or they don't. So the whole concept of creating whatever that is in the womb, the development through, obvious, there is like some sort of, in the water, in the fluid, there is a fish quality in all this. Well, this is not evolution. This is the mystery unfolding on some level that we haven't understood. Why do fetuses have these fish qualities or something? Or why is a sperm swimming? All these things are not understood in principle. These are aspects of matter imprinting itself on consciousness. But the one thing that is, you cannot quantify or create data around conscience. So Bitcoin is going to be a humongous failure if conscience survives. Now, what conscience, I'm saying, survives in the sense that this is the variable that is out of their control. And now, if they can extract and separate us from consciousness, from conscience and just be left with this, this amorphous plasma, whatever that might be, and they imprint whatever it is they want onto this plasma without conscience, they have the perfect world. I mean, perfect in the sense that you're basically in total control. I think this is what's happening with Bitcoin. It's an attempt to have ultimate and complete total control, because the only thing that separates us from all other matter and things is conscience. This is why I've been going on about this for the last, especially in the last year or two, since, of course, you know that my position is that the greatest threat to all of life has been the release of nuclear materials into the environment, which will last thousands and hundreds of thousands of years. We do not have a way, at this point anyway, of mitigating the effect of these isotopes on our biology and all other life on this planet, which is part of, I think it is part of many strategies that are being employed to separate us from conscience. That obviously you die, as far as the owners are concerned, all of that stuff is eliminated, right? It's like if you kill off life, you know, the thing that really, really bothers these people that are trying to run everything, the bastards, these criminal syndicates who are getting away with murder, what they need to actually be able to do is separate us from that which makes us us. And the DNA is merely the physical imprint of this mysterious aspect to us, which is grounded, for you and me, is grounded not in the matter of DNA, but conscience. This is the obstacle. People, this is the obstacle. This is how I'm interpreting in my recent work. What I'm understanding is that we are basically imprints. We are imprinting ourselves on a neutral plasma that is contained in a mystery. And how do we navigate this incredible frustration of not knowing? And we get, here's how it works for me anyway. What I've sensed in myself, what I have understood about growing up, is that I have a much more satisfaction, I will even call it meaning to my life, to the extent that I can be unselfish, that I am acting in kindness, with consideration, what Buddhists like to call compassion. I say this is all encompassed within the concept I have of conscience. And you can attach your own feelings of spirit, for whatever it is that you feel comfortable with. If you want to say the love, yes, the love is absolutely a fulfilling sensation, that love feeling towards something. And that actually evolves and grows. It gets bigger. There is one thing that evolves. I think that this ability in us to activate our conscience grows, evolves, becomes bigger, and actually presents the greatest obstacle to those among us that understand this is of enormous significance within the framework of us feeling that there is meaning in our lives. There is meaning in our lives, not just some physical act that takes us from point A to point B, from birth to death, whatever that in-between stuff, whatever that is, we don't understand. What is at the end of it, hopefully, is a real true feeling of meaning. And the people that are totally overwhelmed somehow by the lack of this sense of meaning, like people are killing themselves. There was another death in the community that a person killed themselves, and a young person. And the idea is that in the Native community, this is overwhelming. The suicides among teenagers and children in Native communities is overwhelming, because this has been so traumatic, the feeling that there is no meaning. And what gives us meaning is conscience, not consciousness. Conscience gives us meaning. And shitcoin is a platform, a way to separate us from these two. I guess they're kind of like, if you want to see them as two sides, I see them quite integrated because conscience imprints itself on consciousness as well. But they have figured out a way to separate and extract these aspects to ourselves and possibly create future generations without conscience. This is what's happening with Bitcoin. This is what's happening, under the radar, artists that are not aware of the profound development or the profound misdeeds that are going on under our noses. The artists that do not identify this aspect to our existence, the zeitgeist, are totally irrelevant to me. They have no significance. The Damien Hirsts have no significance. The idea that you create a platform through individuals, through entities like the Aleister Crowley types, who are placed, people are revolted. The ordinary person that hears about his extravagant lifestyle, what it is that the abuses he was involved in, people would be revolted by this fellow. But he seems to always be getting attention. This type of personality always seems to be in the forefront of the discussion. It's always their story. I don't want to hear their stupid, misguided, deranged, barbaric story anymore. We need to create our own story. And I interpret the time I live in. I make videos and I talk about it, but more importantly, I do it visually with my work, which is I think it's the reason I'm a painter is because I haven't found a better way of expressing this notion of the time that I live in. And I hope this helps, because what I'm attempting in the videos, in my work, is to interpret, create a sense of myself within everything that's happening around me. Unfortunately, right now, we're in very stressful times because somewhere this consciousness is aware of the threat to what is going on with all of us in terms of our environment. But even more important, yes, the environment is everything. But even more important, the environment would be cleaned up if we could sort this part out and not let the reptiles go through our china shop, manipulating everything, now attempting to separate us through digital technologies from our essence, which, by the way, is not possible. You either have a conscience or you don't. They can't separate it. They're quite retarded about this because it's not possible. It's never been able to be done. Yes, you can individually punish and torture and do all those kind of things, but you cannot extract conscience from a person. It's not possible. But they're going to get damn close on this one. This is what they figured out. They figured out that if we can map your genome, if your DNA becomes our possession within we can imprint this on anything that we want. This is going to be an ongoing story. I'm going to articulate this a little bit more, but it's quite fascinating. And thank you, Deborah Mahmoudieh, for I asked you to explain some of the things that you brought up in one of your previous videos. And I have a very deep regard for people that have suffered, that have had incredibly difficult lives. I've been fortunate. I've not had to go through the kind of suffering that this woman has gone through, and other people that I've talked to that I know that have been terribly abused, and have, for whatever, in whichever way this works, within each person is very distinct in being able to overcome the challenges. Some people are more able than others. That doesn't mean it's easy in any way. It's just some people, and I have a deep regard and respect for people that have struggled through adversities that are beyond imagination and have actually come out on the other side with an enormous passion for life and the And conscience, the conscience part of them is active. It's not thrown in the gutter and say, I don't give a shit. I'm going to kill myself or I'm going to kill everybody else around me because I've been so abused and I've been treated so badly. So when people actually impress themselves on me, having come through, and people who defend those who are innocent and more vulnerable are also very high on my list of regard, by the way. The people that I associate with speaking their conscience and acting it, not just saying it, but acting it, are very high on my list of regard. So I'll end it here. I'll do some more on this. It's already 25 minutes.